everybody. This is attorney Arkady Frekhtman, a New York City personal injury trial attorney. And today is Monday, February the 13th, 2023. And I'm glad to be back. I feel like I'm back in the saddle again because I was away last week. I was on a jury trial, and I'll do a video about that trial. But this video will be last week tonight. And what I'm going to do this week is really something special. I'm going to answer some questions now from your comments. And then whatever questions we don't get to, we're going to leave until Thursday. And Thursday, I'm going to go live. And I'm going to be answering your questions live because we have 3 weeks worth of questions. So there's no way I could do all of them right now. So I'll start and then we'll continue live on Thursday, probably like around 5 p.m. when I think a lot of people get off work. So you guys will be available and maybe you could do a little bit of a chat and I can answer your questions live in the chat or answer your comments. And so we'll have some material saved over for Thursday. So let's get into it. The first question, and like I apologize, I'm 3 weeks behind, but the first question looks like it's from, or rather a comment from Ricey Harrier. And he says, insurance companies are very worried about good trial attorneys. And that is very, very true. Like, in fact, the trial I just finished was an example of how insurance companies are worried about good trial attorneys, because essentially like what it came down to in the end, it was a long trial. It took about 2 weeks. It was like 4 days of picking a jury. And then we spent another week on trial. We had 2 doctors, we had the plaintiff. We didn't have any other witnesses. We were planning to call these non-party witnesses for liability, but it turned out that they conceded liability, which was something they did strategically because they probably knew or kind of had the idea that we had all this dirt on them. And if we would have done the trial on liability, I think the verdict would have been bigger. The verdict was over $500,000, which was a pretty good verdict. It was $535,000 total. And I think that's a very good verdict for this type of case. This was a case with someone who got injured upstate New York. She was running in the grass, playing tag, and she cut her ankle and she had a scar. And she only needed like 8 stitches in the hospital and she was treated and released. And she had this like 2-inch scar. And then, you know, maybe 2-3 weeks later, she goes back, she gets the stitches removed. And then a few months later, she goes back complaining about cosmetic appearance. And then this was in November that she went back. It happened in July. And so November, she went back about cosmetic appearance. And then later, like 3 years later, she ends up, you know, having some pain and some nerve injury. Claims of nerve injury, and she goes to one doctor just for one visit, and the doctor pretty much like brushes her off. And then she saw another doctor, a neurologist, who ended up being our expert, and he actually found the neuropathy and something known as complex regional pain syndrome, which he said she was just starting to have, also known as reflex sympathetic dystrophy. So based on that, you know, it was very, very little, like 3 hospital visits, right? Getting stitches, removing stitches, and then, hey, is this going to be a scar? You know, 3 visits to the hospital, and then 2 visits to doctors. One doctor like brushes you off, says you have nothing, or maybe you have a superficial nerve injury. And then another doctor who actually does the testing and does like what's known as a sympathetic skin response, which is kind of like an electromyography, the nerve conduction testing. He does that, and that turns up positive. And then he also does the temperature checks and says, hey, the temperature is a little bit lower in your left leg than it is in your right leg. So that's how he objectively diagnosed the CRIPS. So anyway, so based on that, you know, a lot of lawyers would say, you know, that's not really worth much. And so the what happened was the defendants offered us like $25,000, then they went up to $50,000. I sent them one of those settlement opportunity letters like I talk about in these videos. I said, look, pay me $650, and if not, then I'm going to go to trial and I'm going to ask for more than $1 million. And all they had was $1 million policy. They didn't have anything else, no excess, no umbrella, nothing else. So they said, no, they said 85, that's the most we'll ever pay you. And then finally, before trial, they said, maybe if you agree, we'll give you 100. I said, no, thank you. I went to trial and the verdict was $535,000, $35,000 for the past pain and suffering, because it was just stitches, and $500,000 for the future, because she's young, she's only 19. So she has 61.2 years to live according to the life expectancy tables. So like I said, I'll do a deep dive about this case. Very interesting. There's so many like little tricks that they were playing, and all these, you know, between the interactions with the judge and the we had 2 defense lawyers against us, and it was just very interesting. We had actually multiple judges, because there was one judge who oversaw the voir dire, the jury selection. Because in New York, it's a little different from most states. In most states, when you pick a jury, you have a judge in the room. In New York, you pick a jury without any judges. But if you have an issue, right, like a cause challenge, and you don't agree, you have to go see what's known as the JCP judge, which is the jury coordinating part. So that was one judge. And then after you pick the jury and you're ready to go to trial, you get assigned a judge, which is what happened. So yeah, it's very interesting. But like I said, I'll do a video about that later. But this comment, absolutely true that insurance companies are scared of good trial attorneys. And look, this just goes to show, like so many times this has happened. I had another case with a truck accident where the insurance company was trying to get rid of it for like $15,000. I said no, and then I worked it up, and then we settled it for like $800,000. Same thing here. They're trying to get rid of it for $25,000, $50,000, then they say 80 is the absolute max, and you see the verdict is over $500,000. So just you could change the cases so much, and the real beauty of it is, my client, she is 19 years old. She has this nerve injury. She's probably going to have it for the rest of her life. It's mild right now, but as she gets older, it's going to get worse. And she was, pretty much like happy with the 85. If another lawyer told her, hey, take the 85, she probably would have taken it. So it's good that I told her not to, that we took a shot. It was risky. We could have gotten 0, but we got over $500,000, and she just had tears of joy at the end of the trial. She was so happy that this was like life-changing money for her. So that's what it's all about. It's all about helping serious injury victims and families. So I feel like, I feel like a new sense of vigor, a new sense of, I feel like strong that we did this, we helped someone, and that's what it's all about. So, okay, let's go to the next comment. The next comment we have is, let's see here. Oh, here's a question from Melquantoni. I have a few questions about this type of surgery. I was in an accident with a vehicle, hit my car last December. I went through all possible treatment as far as physical therapy and injections, which was 2 sets. I got recommended for a 2-level disc replacement, L4, L5, and S1. My Medicaid approved for a single level, and my options are limited. Except for the fusion surgery, I do not know that the person who hit me has $500K policy. And she's talking about the video of spinal fusion surgery settlement value after a herniated disc. And she says that, are these pre-existing conditions from 7 years ago a work injury? And I was told that the insurance company questioned, and I was told that the MRI wasn't identical to the prior MRI. So if I do go ahead and get the surgery, is this a likely opportunity for a big settlement? Or what's the likelihood of less settlement if I don't get the surgery? A fusion is a very, very serious injury. So, it's hard for me to say, I have to really look at your file, because it seems like the question you're asking is, if I get the surgery, would it be considered a pre-existing injury that I already had? Or would it be considered an aggravation and exacerbation of that pre-existing injury, which is probably the latter. Probably if you had the pre-existing injury, but now you're going to need a fusion because of the car crash, then you can claim all of the additional injuries. Like that's what's known as, aggravation and exacerbation, because the accident, the car crash, aggravated and exacerbated your pre-existing condition, causing you to have, spinal fusion. That's a huge injury. So that could be a multi-million-dollar case. If the car has a $500K policy, I think you should be able to get the full policy. And you say that it happened in Las Vegas. So Las Vegas, from what I've seen, the lawyers that I deal with out in Vegas, they're all very, very good trial attorneys, and people get really, really big numbers out there, like multi-million-dollar numbers. So I don't think it should be an issue. And then she says, what if I don't get the surgery? Can I still get a big settlement? Yeah, you could still get a significant settlement if you don't get the surgery, because what you would do there is you would just base it on the fact that you have this injury and probably you had injections and physical therapy. So that's something right there. Like, we've settled cases for hundreds of thousands of dollars just with injections. Plus, what you have here is you have the need for surgery, right? So if you choose not to get it, you get a report from the doctor saying you need it, and that's known as medical necessity. And then you argue that, look, I'm not getting it now, but I have whatever number of years, just like my client had 60 years to live. You might have, depending on your age, you might have more or less, according to those statistical tables. So you say, look, whatever the number of years I have in the future, I could get it in 2 years, and 3 years, and 4 years, right? So that's what you do, and then you claim medical need, and then you could get, I mean, a medical need case I think is going to be less money than an actual surgery case, but it still can be very, very significant. So I would say probably hundreds of thousands if you have the medical need, and possibly millions if you end up getting the surgery. And the 500K policy, you know, they should tender that. And if they don't tender it, go for excess and umbrella, go for a bad faith case, and you can get more through bad faith. Okay, let's go to the next question. The next question is from David Rue, and he asks, I was involved in an accident caused by an uninsured motorist. I only have a $30,000 cap I can collect from. We are in the settling stage. I'm about to go into a long deboucherie set of surgery that I will not be able to take care of with any more liens. Now I'm through with PIP. My lawyer is supposed to call today, and how long does it take to get a check from them once they have all the paperwork? They were sent it last week, and we've been told that. So yeah, I mean, the settlement stage, you know, I don't know what city it's in New York, I would say the settlement stage is pretty quick. It's usually about 30 days. The only time it can get really like held up is if there are liens, like Medicaid liens, Medicare liens, any kind of liens. Those sometimes take a long time, but the settlement stage itself, yeah, if you send them a release and all the hold harmless, release, stipulation of discontinuance, all of the settlement documents, usually it's about 30 days and they give you the check. In fact, they have to, right? If they don't give you the check, then you can enter a judgment and you could enforce the settlement. So that's what a settlement is. It's binding and they have a certain time limit to pay you. So that's good. So you should get paid soon. Okay, then Brent Mason says, thank you so much for your insight and knowledge. Thank you. Thank you for watching, everyone. And let us know like what comments you have, what questions you have, what topics you want to see in the future. We are here for you. So now we're ready. Now we got this trial over. So this whole week, I'm going to try to shoot some videos to get a little bit of a content, backlog. So I have some good video content for the future for everyone. And let's see, what do we have here? We have Sugar Bay. She says, I got to the premiere late. Thank you for your answers. I will rewatch. That's the last week tonight that we had 3 weeks ago. Thank you so much. Let's see what other questions we have. I came across your page and you have been very resourceful, from Mary Smith. And she says, how long after signing settlement documents should the checks arrive? Okay, so that's kind of like the same question. Yeah, about 30 days, I would say. 30 days, usually. At least in New York. I think it should be the same most places, but each place might have slightly different rules. And let's see what else people have. What other questions? Ray says, so what if they have $1 million policy limit and I have post-concussive syndrome and a permanent injury with $375,000? Would that be okay offer? Would that be a good offer? And he's talking about another Last Week Tonight episode from January. I mean, I think probably you can go for more than that. I don't know why 375. I mean, it's not a terrible offer, but if they have $1 million policy and you have even a mild traumatic brain injury, I would say go for the maximum, because the brain injury is always like, I feel like the brain injury is the most serious injury anyone could ever have, right? Because it's your brain. It controls who you are. It controls everything, right? It controls your arms, your legs, everything. It's your brain. So I feel like that's the most serious injury anyone could have. So I will always say with a brain injury, just go for the jugular, go for the maximum, the top, the highest and most you could possibly get. And, and then when they say they have $1 million, but how do you know they don't have excess or umbrella unless your lawyer really has verified that? Because a lot of the times they do, and they just don't tell you about it, so. Okay, then Wen says, I was convicted of a felony in 1995 for fraud. Even though it was long ago, how bad could this affect my case? And I'm in Los Angeles, California. Yeah, so I mean, you have a felony for fraud. Now, fraud is what's known as a crime of moral turpitude, meaning it's an ethical violation or it's a morally bad crime. So it could come into evidence, but what I would say is I wouldn't be too worried about it. I would just tell your attorney about it and make sure your attorney is a real trial attorney who knows how to deal with this in voir dire or jury selection. What I would recommend is just, be upfront and honest and ask the jurors if they will accept that you have already paid the price for your crime, right? Because whatever the crime was in 1995, whether you had to do jail time or restitution or probation, whatever your punishment was, you've already been punished. And you're not the same person now in 2023 that you were in 1995, right? That was a long, long time ago. So you're a different person, number one. And number two, you've already paid for this crime. So why do you have to pay for the crime again by getting a jury that's not going to be fair and is going to give you less money than you deserve for your personal injury lawsuit? What does that have to do with your injury? You know what I'm saying? Like, your injury should be worth a certain amount. Now, if it's worth, let's say, $1 million, should you take like 200,000? Should you lose 800,000 because you made this one mistake when you were a kid back in 1995? Of course not. So you have to make sure to be vulnerable and talk about that with the panel of prospective jurors and see what their thoughts are. Now, thoughts, beliefs, state of mind, everyone's going to have a different one. Some people are going to say you should be punished for it. So just get those people off your jury, You never know. I never like to tell people what to think. I like to just say, tell me more, and let them talk and get them all talking to each other, get them talking to you. I don't do a lot of talking in voir dire. I let the jurors talk. I just try to, incite the talking or, light the flame and get the talk going like a fire and try to form a group and get everyone talking to each other, talking to me. So that's what I would say. But I wouldn't worry about that. That wouldn't be anything to really worry about. Okay. Let's see. What other questions do we have? Mimi says, this man deserves 1 million subscribers. He is a great person and a great lawyer. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, actually, that's another thing. We just hit 3,000 subscribers. So thank you so much. That's awesome because, we started out this channel a few years ago. And I think for the longest time, we just had a few, like 20, 30 subscribers. Then we were growing slowly and slowly. We got to 1,000, which is a big milestone. Then we got to 2,000. Now we have 3,000 and we're, on our way past 3,000. So it's great that we have all these subscribers. And I think our channel has gotten like almost, maybe like 2 million views over the entire year or maybe over a few years, but we've gotten a few million views. So it's just amazing to me that people are watching and people are enjoying the content and, millions of views and probably hours and hours of watch time. So that's really cool. And we love to be a resource and to help out in any way we can. Okay, let's see what other questions we have here. So we have a lot of comments. Oh, here's a cool question. This is from Frekhtman, and he says, what advice would you give a new attorney or someone that wants to be a personal injury trial attorney in the future? I want to, but I'm only in 11th grade right now. Oh, that's really cool. So yeah, somebody who's in like high school, I would recommend maybe joining your school's debate team or some kind of extracurricular activity that you would enjoy, because I think debate really helps you think on your feet, critical thinking skills, organizing your thoughts, also extemporaneous speaking. I was actually on the debate team in my high school. We did what's known as Lincoln Douglas debate. And then when I went to college, we did something called American Parliamentary Debate Association, APTA. And we had a lot of really smart people. We were going to different tournaments. We went to like Harvard, Princeton. We flew out to Stanford one year. We actually made the finals of Stanford. I forget if we won or not. We might have won that one. I can't remember now. But I know we got like, we had top speaker awards. I think one year I got like second or third speaker at Harvard, which is a big deal because Harvard had like thousands of people, like Oxford would fly in and, and we had all these, they even had international competitions and I didn't go, but another team, my friends, they went out to like, I think Australia and they won, or they were in the finals of like the world championship. So it was very, very exciting. So I would recommend doing that. And there were a lot of famous people. I think a guy named Austin Goolsbee, who now is, or was like high in the Obama administration. He was debating. Ted Cruz was there, who's like now a famous like Republican, I think out of Texas. I forget his position right now, but you probably heard of him. He was debating. He was there a little older than me, so I think he was a senior when I was a freshman. But a lot of famous people, a lot of very successful people were part of that network, and I think that's a great thing to do. So I would recommend that, and there's, of course, there's other things. There's community service, a lot of people say political science is good for law, but you don't have to do political science. Like I was actually a history major. I like that department in my college more than the political science department. So really it's up to you. A lot of people actually end up doing something completely different, like math, or even biology, right? And then later, instead of going into medicine, they go into law, because there's so many different fields of law. But yeah, I think that, and maybe intern with a lawyer in the summer if you can, just learn more. Okay, let's see what other questions we have here. Here's a question from a Timothy Caldwell. He says, I got injured at work. The first doctor in the ER said I had a total loss of a disc space at L5-S1 as well as an L4-L5. The insurance company then sent to physical therapy before seeing a specialist, and that made my back worse. Then the specialist sent me to do trigger point injections, causing a steroid overdose that nearly stopped my heart and hospitalized me. Then that doctor told me I'm a shoulder surgeon. I don't do back, so I'm not going to send you for an epidural. The injury was March 8th of 22. I just now, almost a year later, got an appointment with a proper doctor who said I needed L5-S1 discectomy infusion as well as an L4-L5 discectomy, and that the surgery still may not fix me and I will most likely still be in pain and never get much better. I had to get a lawyer just to get this appointment and get my TTD payments. They started weekly payments, but still no back pay. To top it off, the HR lady at work sent fabricated text messages between me and her to the insurance company to attempt to hurt my case, or the insurance company themselves fabricated them after she sent them to the adjuster. I provided my lawyer with my cell phone and the real texts where even she was talking about how horrible the insurance company was and how poorly they had handled my case. I am in Alabama. Do you have any idea at all what kind of settlement I can expect in my pocket after all this mess? The lawyer is only taking 15%, so that's pretty good. Yeah, no, I'm sorry to hear that. That's really terrible story that has to go through this whole ordeal and not being able to see the right doctors. I mean, I feel like the lawyer should really quarterback the case. So the lawyer should help coordinate your medical care and send you to the right doctors. You shouldn't be seeing a shoulder doctor if you have a back injury. It just doesn't make sense, right? Just like you wouldn't see an eye doctor if you had a dental issue, right? It doesn't make any sense. So make sure your lawyer coordinates your medical care. And it sounds like a very serious injury. If you end up having this discectomy infusion, it could be a multi-million-dollar case, but you have to find out how much insurance the car that hit you has, or actually this was a work injury, I'm sorry. So how much money there is. And it's important to also figure out, is this a third-party lawsuit, like a personal injury lawsuit, or is this what's known as a straight workers' comp? A straight workers' comp is when you get hurt at work, and it's more like an insurance. You just get paid for your lost wages and your medical bills. But there's no one to sue, right? There's no third party to sue, and you cannot sue your employer because they're giving you the lost wages and the medical bills, right? So that's how workers' comp works. Now, if you could have both. You could have a workers' comp and get that lost wages and medical bills paid, but then you could also have a third-party lawsuit. The third-party lawsuit is usually where the big money comes in, so it just depends on what kind of case it is. But he says Alabama has the lowest settlements in the country. So I'm not too familiar with Alabama, but look, if you need a consultation from a local attorney in Alabama, just text me. It's 347-566-9595. I know some good lawyers in Alabama, so I'm happy to provide them and maybe they could help. Okay, then we have another comment from Mr. Rahman. He says, next spine injury video you do, can you talk about the one-level ACDF that got 10 million verdict? And do you know if that was sustained on the appeal? Yeah, absolutely. I'll talk about that. I'm not sure if it was sustained on appeal, but I could talk about that case. Absolutely. I'll do that. And then Amanda Lynn Gibson says, I so appreciate your teaching this good information. As a single older adult living in rural Florida, I am learning so much from you. My brain gets flooded quickly because it is on tape I can return to keep learning. Whatever happens in my case, your knowledge is great and your compassion is validating. TBI is an invisible, erratic, and so disorienting. Yes, unfortunately, traumatic brain injury is a terrible injury. This lady, I think she also texted me and maybe emailed me, so I told her during the trial I was gonna get back to her, so I'm gonna review my emails and definitely get back to her. But thank you so much, and I'm wishing you the best of health and the best result in your case. Okay, let's see what other questions we have. And then we have, another comment from Ms. Gibson. She says, listening to your comments from 14:15 in the Last Week Tonight earlier episode, she says, just makes me cry. Whether the lawyers make money or not should be everyone's last concern. If the patient gets justice, getting the care they need, won't you risk being disbarred for saying that? You are a truly ethical and caring attorney. Thank you for making referrals for folks who are not in New York to quality lawyers in their state. Yeah, absolutely. You are very, very welcome. Yeah, I mean, I feel like, yeah, this was in response to another comment where somebody said, like, it's all about whether the lawyer can make money from your case. And I said, no, that's the last concern. The real issue is whether the lawyer can help you, right? Whether the lawyer can get you the money that you deserve and the true justice, which is a fair and just, verdict. Compensation. Compensation, really, the word compend means to balance, right? So what do you lose? You lose your health, right? You lose your injury. That's what gets taken away from you. Those are the harms and the losses. And also you have to think about what the person is left with. Because if someone, for example, has a brain injury or has a fusion to their neck, they have a lot of losses, but also they get left with being that brain injured person who can't think straight for the rest of their life, right? So what's the equal trade dollar value of something like that? You have to compend, you have to balance. So it's really about paying a fair amount to the client. Now, if the lawyer is able to get a fair and just amount for the client, then the lawyer is going to get a third of the recovery. The lawyer is going to do just fine. So it's not really about the lawyer at all. And it's unfortunate that a lot of lawyers think about it the wrong way. They think, oh, this is about me. This is about me making money. I have to be able to make money. If I can't make money off this case, I don't want the case. Well, now what you're doing is the tail is wagging the dog, right? It's not right. And so I think that's what I said here in this comment. I actually mentioned a book I was listening to, an audiobook from Zig Ziglar. And he said, you will get all you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want. And that quote really resonated with me. I think it's a great quote. And I got to finish that book. I didn't finish it because I was on trial, but that's a smart guy, Zig Ziglar. I'm going to finish that. And let's see. And then she says, yeah, 100%. My life has meaning and is purposeful by the contributions I have made. The TBI that she sustained 3 years ago changed that. I don't recognize the person I am now. I keep my nursing license. I haven't gotten an SSI disability. And I will not go gently into that good night, nor the holding pattern that life with a TBI became. I remain hopeful that healing can yet happen. Absolutely, absolutely. I totally agree. You have to be hopeful, you have to have hope, and you have to, get better every day. Even if it's like 1% better, you're gonna get better, you're gonna recover, your health is there, and that's great that you have that positive, outlook on life. And let's see, what other questions do we have? Curtis Lawson says, I fell down at my condominium complex. The sidewalk was raised up 4 inches because of tree roots. And I tripped on it at night and turned out I had a fractured spine. I was in the hospital for 5 days. They thought it was a kidney stone, but it turned out to be a fractured spine. Yeah, I'm very sorry to hear that happen. That's a very serious injury. I mean, we have that happen a lot here in New York. He says that this one, I don't know if he said where it happened. He just said it was at the condo complex. And 3 to 4 inches. Yeah, that's a serious case. That could be also a multi-million-dollar result. Absolutely. So feel free to give us a call or text me. I'm happy to do a consult. I'll put it in the chat. I'll put my number 347-566-9595. Yeah, that could be a multi-million-dollar case. Fractured spine, I mean, that's pretty serious. In New York, I've handled a bunch. I just settled one for 1.8 million, almost 2 million. That was like a trip and fall also on the sidewalk. It was broken. There was like more of a hole, but it was also misleveled, like what he's talking about with the 4-inch raise. And then the lady tripped and she broke her elbow really badly and she had to have surgery. And we ended up getting, I think, 1.8 million. So yeah, that case also, fractured spine, that could be a big one. Okay, let's see. We're almost at the 30-minute mark already. Wow, I'm going too slow today. So let me do 1 or 2 more questions, and I'll leave the rest for other Last Week Tonight episodes, as well as the live we're going to do later this week. So look out for that. Okay, Timothy Harris says, very informative. I've been denied 3 times from lawyers for a previous claim from 2020. I missed a Zoom appointment the day after I had surgery, sedated under oxycodone. and other meds, and had a Zoom scheduled. So I thought it was 1 p.m. and it turns out it was 10 a.m. Oh, I think he missed some kind of deposition, or he missed something. So yeah, that's not a problem. You should be able to reopen that. Just tell your lawyer, they'll contact the defendants, the insurance companies, and just reschedule it. As long as you didn't miss like 10 in a row, then maybe, you can't. But if you missed one, you should be able to reschedule it. So it's not a problem. And then iGod Mode says, how does a regular person find the payout information on cases? Yeah, that's actually a great question. They really should make that more accessible and available to people. You could subscribe to some lawyer blogs. There are a lot of blogs that talk about value, other YouTube channels. There's also something known as the Jury Verdict Reporter. I don't know, I think it's a little expensive though. And then there's Westlaw and LexisNexis, or Case Text, services like that will gather and then make information available. But those could be expensive. So the verdicts I talk about, usually I get them from one of those sources, like either Jury Verdict Reporter, Westlaw, LexisNexis, Case Text, but they're all pricey. So unfortunately, it's hard. Oh, and he says, can you post more work accident cases with fusions involved? Yeah, absolutely. I will do that. Actually, I save a bunch of cases and then later I read through them. I try to curate it a bit to get the best, most interesting cases and then talk about those for you. So I'll do that soon. And then what else do we have? Oh, and then he says, could you do more New York City construction judgments? Yes, absolutely. I'll do that. Yeah, we've actually been getting a lot of construction cases ourselves. We're handling about 5 or 10 of them now. So as I'm handling these construction cases, I'm going to do a lot of research as to other verdicts, and so I'll do more construction videos. Okay. Yeah, construction cases are very interesting, especially in New York. The law is very strong in New York. It protects the worker, which is good, and then you can get really good results. Okay, let's see what other questions. Maybe let's do 1 or 2 more. Here, Jason Anisquita says, I was crashed on the side by a forklift while I was driving out of my job. I received chiropractic, physical therapy, and an epidural injection. It was in New Jersey. Do you have a rough estimate? Yeah, if you text me, I'm happy to do a consult. I don't like to give estimates just based on that because it's really it's really a shot in the dark. I don't want to just be wrong and give you false information. But the fact that you got hit by a forklift, so that means there's either a construction company or the owner of that forklift, that should be a large policy. And you're leaving your job, right? So I'm assuming it's a third-party lawsuit against the construction company or the forklift. And then chiropractic, physical therapy, and an epidural. Just those injuries, an epidural injection in New York, I've settled cases up to like $200,000 for epidurals. But in New Jersey, it might be roughly similar. It might be a little bit more conservative in New Jersey than in New York. But I think the best person to ask is your attorney, of course, because he'll have that intimate knowledge. He or she will have that intimate knowledge of your case. But it sounds like it could be a big case. And then Joseph Murray asks, when is it time to find out about policy limits, before or after treatment is done? Yeah, well, it doesn't really matter. I would just say ASAP, like as soon as possible. In New York, what you do is you send a letter, and it's insurance law 3420F, and you say, look, tell me all the policy limits under the insurance law. So you don't have to even file a lawsuit. They have to tell you. And now they changed the law. So when you do file a lawsuit, you don't even have to ask for it. The insurance company has to tell you automatically. You're supposed to just get the actual deck sheet and see, look, this is the policy. Now, once you know the primary policy, let's say it's $1 million, right? Now you can ask for excess, umbrella, supplemental, concurrent, or any other policies in addition to the policy they previously disclosed, right? Which is the primary policy. So he's saying, is it any different on a commercial case? And I would say no. Yeah, you should always get the policy ASAP. But yeah, whether or not, it doesn't really matter before or after treatment, because treatment is something else, right? Treatment is you getting medical care. So that's a different issue from knowing how much the defendant has. That's like 2 separate things. You don't have to wait for treatment to get the policy limits. Okay, Leonardo Cuevas asks about, if you're an Uber driver and you have an accident that's not your fault and you had a passenger at the time, can you sue Uber? and go against their policy. Oh, I see. Yeah, I think Uber, unfortunately, the rules that they have is like they have a certain rule in New York City where you can't sue Uber, but maybe in other places you can. But I'm not sure if if the Uber was not at fault and you're just an Uber driver, can you go against Uber? I have to research that. But I think in New York City, you might not be able to. Other places, it might be open for discussion. So that's an interesting question. Let's see. What other questions do people have? Oh, here's a question from Corey Cash. I was walking in Rite Aid and the sliding door malfunctioned, opened outwardly to smack my knee and shatter it. Then I've had 7 surgeries on my knee and now I'm on disability. My life will never be the same. And this happened in 2019 in New York. How much do you think this case is worth? Yeah, I mean, this is obviously a life-changing forever injury. So if you can prove that Rite Aid was at fault, this door malfunctioned and it shattered your knee with 7 surgeries, that could be a huge case. That could be like 5 million or more. That could be an enormous case. So yeah, if you need any kind of consultation, just feel free to text me, the 347-566-9595. But yeah, that sounds like a monster case. Let's see. What other questions do we have? If the insurance wants to take you to their doctor, is that a good idea? No, it's not really a good idea. It's just part of the lawsuit process. What the insurance company will do is they'll send you to their doctor because you have your treating doctors, and you could also get experts if you want as a plaintiff, right? Because you have the burden of proof to prove your case. Now, the defendants, the insurance company will hire a law firm to defend their policyholder or insured, the person you're suing. And so what they get to do is send you to what they call an independent medical examiner. But it's not really independent. What it really is a defense medical examiner. It's a doctor that they pick and they pay. And then the doctor knows that he's getting business from the insurance company because they always, get picked and paid by the insurance company. And the doctor almost always will just say, hey, you're not hurt. In fact, this last trial that we just did, it was funny. We found like 7,000 reports. In every report, he's like, no neurological injury. It's like the same. It's almost like, just regurgitating the same thing in the same language. And even when he gets quoted by judges in judicial opinions, he says, no neurological injury. So I actually made fun of it in closing argument. And I think that's one of the reasons the jurors allowed for a large, over $500,000, because they saw that it wasn't really fair. Our doctor was truly, an expert, but he was neutral. He actually did 60% of his work for the defendants. He actually does work for the defendants too, because he's truly neutral. He calls it like he sees it. But their doctor was this doctor who never, I think one time he testified for our plaintiff, but for 26 years, 27 years, he was always only testifying for defendants and always saying no one's ever hurt. I mean, how could no one ever be hurt? It's crazy. So be careful with that. What I like to do is send an IME watchdog, send someone with you, like an independent person who'll take notes as to what's happening. If you're allowed to videotape that. As a patient, you may be able to do it depending on the rules in your location, but try to videotape it and send somebody who's independent to write everything down, because those doctors will then lie and say they did like these full testings. One time there was a doctor here in New York, I forget his name now, but there was a case where he said that he did like a 20-minute exam and the lawyer had videotaped it. He's like, wait a minute, how can you say it's a 20-minute exam? Here's the videotape of the entire exam from when my client walked into the exam room until the end. And you know how long it was? It was less than a minute, less than 60 seconds. And this doctor is testifying on the stand that it was over 20 minutes. They're just lying. And so I think the doctor now doesn't do these DMEs anymore after that. So it's just crazy. Okay, so I think that's good for now. So like I said, we'll do a live soon. Please like and subscribe to our channel. Give us a comment. If we helped you, if we did a consultation for you, please, we have a link in the description where you can leave us feedback. We love feedback because it helps people find our law firm. We have offices in Manhattan, the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Queens. And if you need a consultation, just text me. I'm going to set office hours where I do consultations 2 or maybe even 3 times every week, maybe for an hour, like in the afternoons. And then I'm gonna, of course, do more videos. Let us know what topics you wanna hear about. So please have a great day. Thank you so much. We are here for you, and we will talk to you very soon. Okay, bye-bye.